Thank you all for checking out Crime Culture. Today's story is one so unusual, it sounds like fiction, but I promise you all, this is a true story. One filled with deception, discovery, and heartbreak. A bizarre case that captivated the country in the 1920s. Every major news station, journalist, and independent reporter was covering it. This is the case of Walter Collins, a 9-year-old who vanished while walking to a movie in 1928 Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Police Department rushed to bring this case to a close. And they would, but Walter's disappearance and subsequent reappearance was unlike anything the city of Los Angeles and the country had ever seen. The police worked diligently to find and return Walter to his mother, Christine Collins. But when Walter returned home, Christine started to notice subtle clues that led her to question whether this truly was her son that had disappeared 5 months earlier. No one could predict the outcome of this case, and it would lead many to suspect corruption within the police department and cause many to demand justice for years to come. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the morbid and mysterious, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on all post notifications. It really helps my channel grow and allows me to keep bringing you haunting stories just like the one I am promising you today. Alright, turn down the lights, settle in, and prepare yourself as we dive into today's story. It's the spring of 1928. Los Angeles is a city brimming with ambition and promise. But beneath its glimmering surface, a dark mystery was unfolding, one that would captivate the nation and change the lives of so many. On March 10th, 1928, 9-year-old Walter Collins disappeared without a trace. His mother, Christine, who at the time was a telephone operator and single mother, gave him a dime to see a movie at the local theater. What followed was a series of events so bizarre and tragic that they seemed ripped from the pages of a detective novel. It was a typical spring Saturday afternoon when Walter left his home to see a movie. He and his mother lived together in the Mount Washington neighborhood of Lincoln Heights, a middle-class neighborhood known for being relatively safe and family-friendly. The sun was shining, and the streets buzzed with the energy of a city on the rise. Christine kissed her son goodbye and handed him a dime for the movie. Little did she know, this would be the start of a disappearance so disheartening that it would stay in the headlines for years to come. Walter headed out the front door, the dime in his pocket, and headed for the theater. Neighbors reported seeing Walter walking toward the theater, but he would never arrive. Panic set in as hours turned into days, and there was still no sign of the young boy. At the time, the people of this community were still on edge. After, just a few months prior to Walter's disappearance, a young girl was kidnapped and ultimately murdered. The public openly criticized the LAPD and their handling of that case. So, this criticism led to the Los Angeles Police Department quickly springing into action once Walter was reported missing. They would go on to launch an extensive search, scouring the city, posting flyers, and spreading the word of his disappearance. After speaking with neighbors, it was said Walter was last seen around Lincoln Park Lake on his way to the theater. This led to the police dragging this nearby lake in search for the young boy, but their search turned up empty. After the initial search turned up nothing, police turned to the public for help and launched a national campaign to find Walter. Tips would begin to flood in. People reported seeing Walter all throughout California. A gas station attendant in Glendale, California would report he saw the body of a boy wrapped in newspaper in the back of a car. This car was being driven by a foreign couple who had stopped to ask for directions. To further corroborate this story, a pair of men at the gas station had also seen this boy, and would later positively ID him as Walter Collins after the police showed them a picture. The men attempted to follow this couple as they left the gas station, but they sped off. This tip would lead to just another dead end. The boy's father, Walter Sr., who was locked away in prison at the time, voiced that he believed former inmates, out for revenge, might have kidnapped his son. Police would follow up on these tips, but again, nothing surfaced. It wasn't until August 4th, close to 5 months after Walter's disappearance, that detectives would finally get a break in the case. Illinois State Police would get in contact with investigators in Los Angeles to let them know they have Walter. According to police, Walter had walked into the police station, identified himself, and confirmed he had in fact been kidnapped. The kidnappers took him to DeKalb, Illinois, where he was released after 5 long months. After knowing Walter was safe in police custody, the LAPD would get in touch with Christine, break this incredible news, and wire her a primitive photo of her son to confirm his identity. After seeing this photo, Christine believed it was her son. She paid $70 in travel expenses to have her son returned to LA, and on August 18th, they were reunited. This reunion would not go as planned. When Walter arrived in Los Angeles, his mother noticed something was off. His mannerisms, his voice, his memories, they didn't align with her son's. While this boy resembled Walter, Christine knew this was not her son. Nothing was aligning with the Walter she knew and loved, and she would say as much to the police. The police, though, would dismiss Christine's claims, saying that her son is just in poor physical condition after being held captive for 5 months. So, under pressure from the police and the media, Christine agreed to take the boy home. But as days passed, her doubts grew. As she spent time with this boy, his differences from Walter became more and more apparent. While this boy did look similar, Christine noticed there were a few key differences. Walter had larger eyes, larger ears, straighter hair, and he was taller, among other things. After a doctor looked over this boy, he noted that his recollection of how he got from LA to Illinois was hazy at best. He also noted that Walter didn't recognize people he was very familiar with just 5 months ago, he didn't play with the same toys, and just seemed generally unfamiliar in his environment. But, not wanting to face backlash from the police department, the doctor chalked this up to possible trauma the boy experienced and exclaimed that it would soon pass. Christine couldn't take the dismissal any longer, so she took action. She would reach out to Walter's dentist for dental records, and he would confirm that this boy, in fact, was not Walter Collins. On September 8th, 1928, Christine would barge back into the police station, dental records in hand, insisting that the boy she was given was not Walter. She would present her evidence to Captain Joseph J. Jones, who was head of the juvenile division for the Los Angeles Police Department. But once again, her claims fell on deaf ears. This time, though, Christine would receive much more than just a dismissal. Captain Jones would go on to accuse her of being a bad mother, trying to avoid her duties as a parent, and bringing ridicule to the police. In the eyes of Captain Jones, Christine needed to be silenced, and that is exactly what he intended to do. The LAPD at the time was under fire, not just for their mishandling of the kidnapping and murder of the young girl just months prior to Walter's disappearance, but for a handful of cases that were seeming to go unsolved. It appeared crime was on a rise in Los Angeles, and the public was pointing the finger at the LAPD. So when Miss Collins came in claiming that this boy was not her son, the police refused to accept it and instead blamed Christine, labeling her as an unfit mother, and Captain Jones going as far as to call her insane, saying she ought to be in a madhouse, which is exactly where he would put her. The Walter Collins case was a gold star on the police department's record. It started to restore the community's faith in their ability to solve cases. So they could not have Christine Collins claiming they, in fact, did not solve this case. So they came up with a solution. In what seems like an unbelievable turn of events, Captain Jones would detain Christine and have her committed to the psychiatric ward at the Los Angeles County Hospital under a Code 12 internment, a term used to jail or commit someone deemed difficult or an inconvenience. Christine would spend 5 horrifying nights in the psychiatric ward of this hospital. She was locked away with another patient who, after it got dark, would scream and cry, try to pull Christine's hair and grab her throat once she would start to doze off. It wasn't until September 13th, when the boy police had claimed was Walter, would confess he in fact was not Walter. This led to Miss Collins finally being released and resuming her search to find her boy. The boy that was picked up in Illinois was a young boy named Arthur Hutchins Jr., a 12-year-old runaway from Iowa. While at a roadside diner in Illinois, Arthur spoke to another customer who mentioned how much Arthur resembled the missing boy, referring to Walter. After hearing this, Arthur thought of a scheme that would allow him to travel the country, see Hollywood, and hopefully meet his favorite actor and cowboy star, Tom Mix. And so he turned himself in, claiming he was Walter Collins. Just 24 hours after Christine Collins was released, information would be discovered that would lead to the true fate of Walter Collins. On September 14, 1928, a teenage boy in LA's juvenile hall named Sanford Clark requested to speak to detectives, and the information he would provide would blow this case wide open. He would go on to tell detectives about the harrowing experience he had been living for the past 2 years at his uncle's chicken ranch in Wineville, California. His uncle, a man named Gordon Northcott, was a 23-year-old Canadian immigrant who had moved to a remote ranch in Southern California to begin his killing spree in the 1920s. It was here, Sanford reported witnessing the murder of 4 boys, one of which being the boy in the newspapers. Sanford Clark's testimony led to police raiding the ranch, where they would find enough evidence to arrest Gordon Northcott, bringing the country closer to learning what truly happened to Walter Collins. After all the mistreatment, dead ends, and wild goose chases, Christine Collins would finally learn what happened to her son, and what she learned was more horrifying than anything she could have imagined. The true fate of Walter Collins unfolded in a remote chicken coop in Wineville, California. It was here Gordon Stewart Northcott, who had been abducting young boys, would hold them captive for years. The boys would endure unspeakable horrors before Northcott would ultimately kill them. After being captured in 1928, he confessed to kidnapping Walter Collins, along with 2 other boys, Lewis and Nelson Winslow, though he would later retract his confession. His retraction wouldn't matter, though, because in December 1928, Northcott's mother, Sarah Louise, while implicating her son, confessed to participating in the murders and claimed responsibility for Walter Collins' death. Gordon Northcott would end up being convicted of the murders of the Winslow brothers and was sentenced to death, though it is believed he could have been responsible for the death of up to 20 young boys between the years of 1926 and 1928. He was not held responsible for the murder of Walter, even though he was implicated because his mother had taken responsibility for Walter's death. Gordon Northcott was executed in 1930, bringing an end to his reign of terror. Prior to Northcott's execution, Collins became the first woman in 3 decades to receive permission to visit a serial killer on the day of his execution at San Quentin. In the fall of 1930, Northcott sent a telegram to Miss Collins claiming he had lied when he denied that Walter was among his victims, promising to tell her the truth if she visited in person. But upon her arrival to the prison, he refused to talk, leading to unanswered questions about this case. Christine Collins never gave up hope that her son was still alive. She continued to search for him even after the convictions of Gordon Northcott and his mother. Christine's story became a symbol of a mother's unwavering love and determination. Her ordeal was later depicted in Clint Eastwood's 2008 film Changeling, starring Angelina Jolie. The disappearance of Walter Collins is a haunting tale of deception, injustice, and the lengths a mother will go to for her child. It serves as a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable hardship. As we reflect on this tragic story, we are left with questions that may never be answered. What truly happened to Walter Collins? Do you believe the confession of Sarah Northcott? Was Walter's life tragically cut short on this chicken farm in a remote town in California? While this was likely Walter's fate, without the confirmation of DNA, we may truly never know. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to comment your thoughts on this heartbreaking disappearance. And if you're a fan of the morbid and mysterious, be sure to subscribe to Crime Culture, where I will be posting a new haunting true story every week. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on all post notifications. Until next week, stay safe and stay curious.